Employee engagement is vital to the success of any organization. When employees are engaged in their work, they are more productive, creative, and loyal. In turn, this elevates the organization's performance as a whole. At the heart of effective employee engagement initiatives lies the 5 C's strategy: care, connect, coach, contribute, and congratulate. In this first episode of TechTalk's Human Resources Technology season, we delve into the employee engagement topic with our fascinating guests Deborah Kuness, Principal Business Psychologist at Workday Peakon Employee Voice, and Emeline Barbenchon, Director in the People, Experience and Change Department at PwC Luxembourg. Together, we also explore how organizations are using technology to enhance employee engagement. Specifically, we share innovative approaches where technology amplifies each facet of the 5 C's strategy. From AI-driven feedback platforms to immersive virtual reality team-building exercises, technology offers endless possibilities. Join us for a dynamic discussion brimming with insights, real-world examples, and practical tips to boost engagement within your organization with technology. I'm your host, Christopher Rosa, and this is Tech Talk, technology made simple over a cup of coffee. So grab your favorite beverage and let's dive right into it.
Welcome to a new episode of Tech Talk. Today we are going to dive into the fascinating topic of employee engagement.
And today, to engage our interests on this topic, we're joined by 2 fascinating guests, Deborah and Emeline, so welcome.
Hello, happy to be here.
Hi, great to be here.
Great. So let's start maybe by getting to know you a bit more. So can you tell us a bit about yourself and why you're here today to talk about employee engagement?
Yeah, so my name's Deborah Kuness. I'm based in the UK, just outside London, and I'm the Principal Business Psychologist for Workday Peakon Employee Voice, which is Workday's employee listening platform. So I guess I've always been kind of fascinated by people's motivations, people's behaviours, in a work context specifically. So I studied psychology at uni and I've worked in the field ever since, particularly specialised in employee engagement and in embedding employee listening in organisations. So I suppose you could say I've sort of been living and breathing engagement and employee experience for a decade or so, but specifically been working on our listening platform for, I guess, the last 3 years particularly. And the aim of that for me is really kind of how do we support organizations to reimagine, evolve how they listen to their people, how they think about engagement and the employee experience more broadly. When I'm not thinking about employee engagement and surveys, I'm usually either playing tennis or spending time with my 2 dogs, who always get a mention in these kind of things. They're a pretty big part of my life and, I get a lot of energy and motivation from them. So they deserve a mention, I think.
What about you, Emeline?
So I'm Emeline Barbenchon. I'm working for PwC since 8 years in advisory, in people experience and change team. I am supporting companies with their HR transformation and HR technology projects. So starting from identifying the right technology, then implementing those technologies and then supporting them with using those technologies. Engagement is a topic on which we have quite a lot of requests from our clients. It's something getting more and more important for them, especially as we heard about some trends like the Great Resignation, companies really having difficulties in retaining their talents. So people are playing really a big part in the equation for companies' success. And I thought that this topic could be interesting for our clients and our community. And that's why I organized this topic.
Thank you both for a very nice introduction. So let's get started with the basics. Can you explain what employee engagement means and why is it important?
So employee engagement is the extent to which employees are invested in their jobs and in their organization. It's really the guts that they are putting on the table to be involved in their jobs, the commitment, the passion that they have. And even if employees are coming from different generations, for example, baby boomers, Gen Z, millennials, they have varying expectations. However, it's always the same mix for employee engagement. Why is it crucial? Well, it's crucial for individuals. You spend most of your life at work, and if you get bored, if you don't do some things that you like, it's sad for you. So employee engagement is about finding the why. Why are you doing your job? Finding your purpose within the company. Also having a sense of belonging. And for organization, when employees are engaged, it means more productivity as well as retention. So you reduce the costs associated to turnover. It's also generally more collaboration and innovation, as well as increased customer satisfaction. So in the end, it can also have an impact on the revenues.
So it's quite a, let's say, people related topic and focused the topic. So, but
I think we can all relate to that as well.
Yes. But my question is then, how has technology specifically these days transformed the way employee engagement and the landscape mostly in the recent years? And I have a bit of an unlisted question and I'll ask you afterwards, but let's start with that one.
Yeah, so it's a good question. And personally, I've kind of watched technology revolutionize the employee engagement landscape in a number of different ways. I think HR tech and listening platforms have made it so much easier for organizations to understand more about their people, to recognize their people, to take action on the things that they just wouldn't have known about otherwise. And then ultimately, a byproduct of that is we're retaining our superstars, our talent in our business. But I think within that, what's been even more impactful is the shift we've seen in the last 10, 15 years or so in how employee listening technology and platforms are operationalized within organizations. Because I think if we go back, 10 years ago, for those organizations who were listening, which wasn't all of them and still isn't, measuring concepts like engagement and well-being and belonging, like Emeline mentioned, probably more often than not, that would happen on an annual basis or even less frequently. So that meant that once a year, we'd ask every employee the same questions within a 2-week period, and then we'd look at that data, maybe take some action, and then do the same thing again in a year's time. Now, if we think about the world we live in today, that rate of change that's going on around us, I think it's really easy to see why the tech has needed to change and evolve to accommodate a different approach, a more real-time approach, something more sophisticated and maybe mature is the right word there. But it's really about how do we, furnish our leaders, our managers, our businesses with up-to-date information so that we can make much more data-driven decisions, find ways also to be more transparent about action and what we're doing with that information as well. And I think that's been a critical shift because we know that the number one reason why an employee listening program will fail is a lack of action. People get tired of answering questions and not feeling like anything is done with their views and their opinions. Fortunately, technology now has a lot of potential answers to that, which is pretty awesome because it means that you can extract so much more value from what you're doing in your businesses.
And maybe linked to that, I'll ask already an unlisted question, so sorry for that. But how do you ensure then that you keep this process human with all this technology, all these KPIs, and that you still connect with the people on a human level, I would say?
Yeah, I think I'd say that, a survey isn't kind of doing engagement. A survey isn't the way that we drive engagement. A survey is just a measuring tool. What comes next is then the important thing. So what comes from your survey should be a catalyst for conversations. And I think the ideal situation is that we have our leaders, our managers who are activated throughout our organization and are using that data as, the way that they position maybe their team meetings or the way that they think about what the agenda needs to be for the next time they have a one-to-one with their people. So it should never be, we've done a survey, so we've done engagement. It should be, this is a way that we measure our progress. And then really we need to turn that over to our managers and enable them with technology to use that data in conversations and in how they lead their teams as they move forward. But yeah, that's a great question. And I think the tech has some good answers to that now.
Yeah, I would say technology is a tool to get to where we want to get to. Maybe can you share some innovative ways companies are using technology to boost employee engagement?
Yeah, so I guess if I go back a step for a moment, we know that we can boost engagement by improving the day-to-day employee experience. But often the fact is we don't know what we don't know, which is why survey tools exist at all. But, we need employees to share their views honestly if we're going to get those valuable insights, and then we can make those positive changes. What we also know is that one of the most common reasons for poor adoption or poor response rates in surveys, aside from a lack of action, is a lack of relevancy in terms of content. So the questions that are being asked and how we're asking them. And that's why there's been this imperative to kind of open up opportunities and possibilities in terms of tech-enabled, more personalized approaches to listening, so that we can make sure we're asking relevant questions to the right people at the right time. So, for example, that might be checking in more automatically when somebody returns from maternity leave, or when somebody has just become a manager for the first time, asking them very specific questions about their experiences. And it might be, automatically surveying onboarders even while they embed into a business for their first 3 months, so that we can understand, well, how effective is our onboarding program? I think being able to get that granular insight across the employee life cycle is one of the ways that organizations are using this tech, so they can then pivot their strategy where they need to and make change where things aren't working or where there might be gaps. I think another great example I've seen of the power of tech is where, you're enabling your leaders, your managers, to do things like interact with qualitative data that's left in surveys. Now, of course, a key aspect of that kind of technology is psychological safety, making sure that, nobody can be identified. That's kind of sacred to employee listening programs. But I think it does have a multiple effect of both demonstrating that to an employee that their voice has been heard, that their feedback is valued, but it also means that a manager can, or a leader can close the feedback loop by continuing the dialogue beyond the survey. So it's really, really an interesting take on how we redefine what we mean by action. Is action something that sits in a PDF action plan, or is it actually incremental improvement, local 1%er improvements? I think where the technology can enable that, it's, driving response rates, driving adoption, and making sure that employees know that their voices are being heard, and that this program is not a tick box exercise. It's something that's very live and living and breathing within their organization.
What I've been particularly amazed of is the way technology can support in identifying and analyzing the tone of voice that is used. I mean, it's not a voice because it's written, but really the tone, seeing if employees are happy, are unhappy, and go even deeper in the trends. This I find really powerful. And no matter how the employees express themselves in writing, through the natural language processing, you are able to really analyze that. This I find really powerful.
Indeed, and I really like what you said, Deborah, about making surveys more personalized, because I've done so many surveys, and sometimes I do feel like it doesn't really represent me. So I think that's a really great aspect that's involving.
I think one of the key words that you seem to share and that I heard here, at least to me, is the word action. Because, being an employee, we do a lot of surveys, as you were saying, Carla. But it's, when you see that they really impact something and that our actions derive from it, it's super impactful. And talking about actions, maybe a question for you now, Emeline. How can organizations concretely create a culture of continuous feedback and recognition through these solutions to technology?
So I think first, creating continuous feedback culture using technology, we concur that technology is an enabler. So you need to build the effort, the commitment around it, and you need to put new routines in place for this culture to be implemented. So it's not only about technology. Then technology can provide support on multiple aspects. So it can help provide the right spaces. So, for example, sometimes the feedback from employees can be recorded from an anonymous manner, or an anonymous. It can be multi-directional as well, so towards HR, towards their management, towards the organization. And you can also leverage on different channels through technology. So it can be either surveys, it can be even more dynamic, some suggestion boxes. So technology spaces. Then with technology, you can also set up a frequency and also push the right content to the different channels. So we talked about personalization, and I think this is key for analyzing employee engagement. Technology can also speed up the process. We see even on some client project, months are spent to build surveys. And every year we get the same RFPs with building employee survey. Well, with a technology like Peakon, you have already the library of questions available, and it's not always the same questions that are asked. It's really something dynamic, and it's already available. So you just say when you need to send the checkpoint, and it's automatic. And then finally, we talked about this earlier. It's about actioning. Okay, you get all of this feedback from different channels, from different people, to different stakeholders. How do you action, and how do you action fast? This is really important. If you want your feedback culture to be implemented within your organization, need to lead by example. This is really key. And so it's not only about sending questions and acting 1 year later. You need to act as soon as possible. And I think with a technology like Peakon, for example, with an embedded way to chat with managers and to chat with the people to which you are doing some feedback, giving some feedback, and Deborah, you can share some insights on this. I think it really helps implementing this continuous feedback culture. And finally, with the technology, if you use, for example, classic survey tool, you won't necessarily have all the insights, all the analysis about what's working, what's not, how fast people are responding, what are they ignoring, what type of language are they using, is it positive, is it negative. With a strong technology, you get all of those assets, all of those insights, and it can just help you improve.
Great. Actually, it's my turn to have an unlisted question. So we are balanced.
Yes,
Great.
Today, yes.
Yes. So we are all very busy people. And I feel that when we receive on our inbox another survey, we tend to be like, oh no. So how can surveys become more attractive to people? How can we make employees actually want to take 5 minutes of their time to fill in a survey?
Well, first, I would say it does not need to be 5 minutes. It does not need to be 100 of questions.
Yes.
It can be really fast. And Deborah, maybe you want to complement here?
I guess personalization is a good way to attract people, to make them want more to fill out surveys, but maybe there are other ways. I don't know.
Yeah, I think I'd say that certainly a lot of how your listening strategy will be designed as an organization should be driven by how is your workforce made up? What is our cultural maturity? What's our managerial capability, amongst other things? So, for example, we work with lots of organizations who have a large proportion of disconnected workers. So these people are not sat behind a desk all day. They might be in factories, in warehouses, in manufacturing environments, on production lines. And therefore, what will be used to motivate them is probably going to be a little bit different, particularly when we talk about relevant questions. That's even more key. And that's, I think, why we see lots of organizations have diversified strategies, really for pragmatic reasons and to drive their response rates. So, for example, you might have a more continuous listening approach with your desk-based worker population, but then something less frequent or slightly different for those employees who aren't sat behind a laptop all day. And also how you define action might look different between those two groups as well. So I think really thinking through who sits within our workforce what's viable for them, but also what's motivating for them. All of that needs to feed into the approach. More often than not, a one size fits all within an organization isn't the best strategy. So I think spending the time to figure out what is probably time well spent.
Okay, thank you both. So the next question is, how can companies ensure that their use of technology in employee engagement respects privacy, which is also very important, and fosters trust, also very important, and also helps address issues of inclusivity and diversity? And I think this is also a bit linked to my previous question.
It really is. And that is a great question, because I think psychological safety is absolutely one of the cornerstones of a successful listening program. Without it, you're really going to struggle to get that sustained engagement, and to your earlier point, adoption and response rates as well. And in my experience, I'd say that 99.9% of employee listening platforms that are measuring engagement, tracking the employee experience, are truly confidential in how they are set up. And that means that there are thresholds in terms of reporting the data. So, for example, you might decide that we won't display any aggregated data if there are less than 5 responses to a question. Similarly, you might decide that actually we're not going to show comments for a team unless there are at least 20 of them. So those are just some of the upfront decisions that organizations are making when they're designing their approach and configuring the tech. And I think those are then the critical points that have to be communicated to employees so we can drive that adoption, those response rates, and more importantly, actually honesty in the feedback that's being provided. And then alongside that, I think hand in hand are some of the behaviors that your organization, that your leaders display in how they work with the data. Because you can have the most robust, secure settings in your tech with all the right intentions. But frankly, if your managers then take that data and go and ask their teams who said what, or try to identify who wrote comments, all of that configuration and intent is completely redundant because the trust is broken. So, we really have to make sure that the technology, but also our mindset around our program have that alignment, have that internal governance and clarity around expectations. Because I think it's absolutely true that, employee engagement tech does not exist in isolation. It touches every employee in a business, and it's also a representation of the kind of culture that you want to drive. So keeping, abreast of what are the behaviors that are sitting around this technology are equally as critical as the settings that you have in the platform itself. And then just finally, you asked about, addressing issues of diversity, inclusivity. I think in the context of engagement, one of the fundamental aspects is how do we reach every employee so that we are giving everyone the same opportunity? And again, that can become tricky when you've got big portions of your workforce not sat behind a desk. So again, technology's had to get innovative in accessibility options and things like that. Unfortunately, now there are increasingly growing ways, a number of different ways to reach those more unconnected workers, so we don't have that barrier to entry.
And another unlisted question. What do you think is more important? Because you talked about response rates, but also about quality. So what would be more important? Is it how many answers you get or the quality of these answers? And by quality, I mean honest answers that can really provide good feedback that you can work with. That's a tricky question, I guess.
Yeah, to me, it's definitely the quality. And we see that even when we answer to surveys or stuff like that, if you just reply to the question between yes, no, or a scale, I mean, you get a vision overall of the company. But I think where the value is really in the content that the people are typing in.
Thank you. I don't know, Deborah, if you want to add something.
No, I would agree. I think, the richness of what comes through the qualitative data is really where a lot of the answers lie in terms of what are the things we can actually concretely do to make this experience better for this individual. And that's where the magic is. I think there's a history of chasing scores. I don't think that's healthy. And chasing response rates, and response rates being a key KPI for organizations in their program. Again, I don't think that should be the focus. I think you look after the actioning stuff, the response rates will follow naturally.
Perfect.
I think it's a nice segue to the next question. And we were talking about actions earlier, but how can companies actually measure the impact and, so to speak, the ROI, so return on investment of their technology-driven employee engagement initiatives?
So company can take two approaches and they can combine both. They can first look at the quantitative approach. And when we talk about engagement, it's about measuring your turnover. Does it improve or not? I mean, your employee turnover. It's also looking at your absenteeism, your overtime, looking at your productivity. Are the sales target of your commercial workforce, of your company, reached or not? And this gives you already a good overview of the profit of your investment. If you want to go deeper, you can also look at the return on experience. And return on experience, it's about taking into consideration both qualitative and quantitative criteria. So, for example, you could take into consideration the employee net promoter score. Are the employees already working with you, suggesting to their friends, to their former colleagues? Are they recommending your company as a company to work for? I think this is a strong metric. You can also look at the performance trends of your people. How is the performance evolving? Are you having more and more high performers compared to people performing less adequately to companies' expectation? Participation in learning and development. When people are engaged, they tend to be more invested in trainings, in developing their skills. They are willing to grow. So you can also monitor that. And one of the the other great way is to look at customer feedbacks. If your clients are happy, it's also linked to your employees and the way they serve their clients. So I think those are different ways to measure the investment on employee engagement. And yeah.
Oh, it's me.
Yes, it's your.
So we're coming to an end for this episode. So what advice do you have for companies looking to implement technology-driven employee engagement strategies for the first time?
Well, overarchingly, I'd say if you go down this route, this will make your survey life 100% easier than it was with something more manual. I think a few things I'd say are worth spending time considering are, firstly, just make sure you have a really clear narrative as to why you are making the change. So what are you trying to solve with the new technology? What will the program you're building anchor into in the business? And communicating the why might sound really obvious, but it's so critical that I have to mention it. Secondly, I'd say don't be fearful when you're looking at tech platforms that seem to have all the bells and whistles and really advanced features in comparison to what you've been used to, because good listening tech will enable you to go on a journey with your program and evolve at the pace that your organization's ready for. It's really common to see our customers kind of take a walk, crawl, run approach with Peakon. So they'll often phase in different parts of the technology, certain features based on their readiness. And that includes not just frequency of surveying, but also what do we want to give our managers access to, who can acknowledge comments, and those sorts of things. And more often than not, that approach we see tends to lead to a pull from the rest of the organization who are looking and thinking, oh, we could make really good use of that, or maybe we're ready for that. Maybe we want to pilot that within our part of the business, which is exactly what you want, really, to start to embed your tech really well. And then finally, I'd just go back to mindset, because with more innovative listening tech, I think it's really important to consider, what are we asking our managers to do? What is our expectation? And in particular, do we need to reframe how we think about taking action from feedback? Because if you're going to move to a more tech-enabled, maybe more continuous listening strategy, that means how you take action also needs to change. So it's a move away from the big PDF action plans to a sense of little and often incremental changes that really add up to something much bigger over time. And central to that is getting your leaders, your managers on board driving ownership down through the layers of the organization, empowering them to own their data. I think if you can do that, you're going to see amazing results and probably over time change your culture quite markedly as well.
I can only agree with Deborah. In terms of my advice, I think it's really aligned. It's about assessing where you are and where you want to be. You can start with small steps, short term, and then increase your way of measuring and being involved in employee engagement. You can also if you look at different technologies, what I would advise as well is to look at what are your peers doing. And maybe some companies are further down the line on this. So look at what they've done, how they've done it, and learn from their experience. I think this would be key. And then, and you already addressed that, Deborah, it's about change management. So it's not only technologies that you are going to implement, but it's also a cultural switch that you want to have. You need to organize the new routines. You need to have new behaviors within your organization. So it's about how do you create them, how do you engage people, and how do people perceive the why and why they want to do it.
Great.
Very good advice.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Do you have any other questions?
No.
So
I'm good.
I win.
You win with
two
yes.
listened questions.
Today you win.
Yes. Thank you very much both for joining us today.
Thank you.
It was great having you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
And that's all for today. This is TechTalk, technology made simple over a cup of coffee. Don't miss out on any future episodes by hitting subscribe. Thank you for listening to this episode and see you in the next one.